So, hello, Pavel, and welcome to the Curve Square podcast. I am Shashank, your host for the session, and I would like to start off with thanking you for the session and thanking you for your time. And let me start off with asking if you could share a little bit about yourself and how has your journey been so far.
Yeah. You know what? This is going to be a bit of a midlife crisis recap, it turns out, because I recently turned 40. And so a lot of the things in my life have been shifting, and I've been doing a lot of those things. I bought an expensive musical equipment that I can quite appreciate. So, full onset of midlife crisis. But in all seriousness, it made me rethink, and I'm still in the process of rethinking a lot of things in terms of how I forget exactly how I got here, what I want to keep investing my time in, where I want to take my career, and so on and so forth. Um, so I've been, for the past 5 years of my life, of my career, I've been doing design leadership on pretty much director level, and that's my latest role, director of product experience. And design has been my entire career, even though what that means and how I exactly applied it kept shifting. I started super simple. Like I said, almost 20 years ago. It's been quite the journey as a freelancer. It was web design. At least I didn't know there was something like product design or UX design. It was just websites, right? And people needed websites. They were willing to pay me for websites. And so I built websites. And at some point, I even built them full stack. So including the code, which was abysmal, but they worked. And so they were happy that they had them. And then eventually I studied computer science actually because I thought that's a good qualification, like a very certain career choice. Like, worst that can happen, I'll be a programmer. We were still kind of like in the relatively nascent part of the digital era. And so computer science felt like, something reasonable. There was a good school in my town where I could study that major. And so that's what I did, even though I already there very quickly realized I don't actually want to do it. And I want to spend more time maybe crafting slightly different side of digital products, even though digital products still, I found them interesting. And so eventually from school through freelancing, I got my first important gig, I would say, of my career when I became an exec of a small startup. But an exec at a startup, that means, okay, you're the leader, but you're leading maybe 10, in the end, 15 people. I was also leading the design function solely, and so I had a lot of control over essentially a lot of that, a lot of the things that were taking place at the startup. But I would say my most important lesson from the experience was that it taught me stress management, because there were two co-founders, none of which was me. And then I had the team that I was leading, and so it felt like I was maybe a little grain between two grindstones. And so I think, maybe for even the listeners, to some takeaway from that was, managing stress when you are working in tech is, not a bad skill, kind of meta skill to have. My second gig, where I think I felt like I was very lucky, second major gig, was that I joined a company called Productboard, which is a company that is trying to help other companies build better products through better product thinking, better insights, better planning, better team alignment. And one of the things that this company got going for it was that it was pretty global, even though it leaned westwards, like North America and Europe. And it attracted tremendous talent. And so it was a great company to be in. And in this case, I don't mean the company, but company of people to be in. We had great mentors, great leaders, great colleagues. And so there was quite a learning experience. 5 years there, and it was, I would say, my second most formative, or like first most formative, and second in the way that time passes in life. The third experience is what I already touched on. I joined a company called Ataccama, which is helping companies make sense and ensure the quality of their data. And when I say big companies, I mean the biggest, and they have a tremendous amount of data that they need to keep in check. And so Ataccama is building a product that is essentially ensuring that happens for such companies.
But like you started off with telling me that you did a degree as well, like in design, right?
It was not a major in design. It was I would say, an equivalent of a minor. So I took several classes that were design related, like typography and graphic design. animation, and so on.
But tell me more about your origin story. Like, where do you live? Where are you from? And what was your childhood like? What led you to design eventually?
Ah, that's such an unanswerable question, and I've been pondering that again as part of my midlife crisis recap. So I live in Brno. It's the second city in the Czech Republic. Some people might know Prague. I think Prague is quite famous and has many sights to be seen. Brno is not too bad. It's much smaller, much cozier. A friend of mine, he he used to say it's the capital of people with moderate ambition, and I think that kind of captures the vibe of the city. I don't like it too much, to be honest, but it's a very cozy place to live in. It's where my family is, and so that's where I am. And I often branch out, and any chance I get to leave it, even for a little bit, I take. But it's been good to me, and it's close to Prague, where I would say realistically in terms of physical time and most of my career, really. And for the last 10 of it, I was always working with a company which had strong American and North American presence. So it was always kind of like this eastern wing of, like I said, westernly oriented global company.
But like, were you always like growing up a design person or like a visually inclined person?
I think so, to be honest. I think so. One could say my grandmother, she was like a real artist. So I could say, yeah, that genes, right? That she was legit, not famous, but like she did good stuff. Like she did sculpture, she did painting. Like she was competent, qualified. I don't think it's genes, honestly. I don't think that's it. But I always liked games, and from relatively nascent age I designed games, even though they were completely amateurish and completely funky. And so I think that's ultimately what led me to design, the fact that I can create a system or create like an interesting problem for others to solve. And part of my early, I wouldn't call it career because it's not something I'm really continuing on, but I've spent a lot of time with this NGO that was organizing live action role playing games, not necessarily the kind with like rubber swords and so on, more like on the serious side, like a little bit of a improvised theater, maybe you could imagine something like that. So we spent a lot of time creating these things, and that's where I would say I got some appreciation for the player experience. And from there, it's not a long leap to user experience and kind of like putting yourself into the shoes of users. What is it that they are trying to take away? What is it that you want to provide as a maker, designer, creator, and so on? Mm-hmm. So I think that's it. But bottom line, I think I just like nice things when they work well and when they are well thought out. And that I would say is the red thread through my career. Just like helping nice things to exist.
Then, like, what were some of the early career lessons that still shape your business and product thinking to this day?
Well, I already talked about stress management, so that's the first one. I would say the second one is what I didn't really understand early in my career is kind of the importance of product thinking. I was the designer, as in like the crayon, the pencil. I was just like, okay, figure this out. I would figure it out. Yeah, sure. And then when I stepped into that executive role, it was more and more pronounced that how important that is to have a good direction, to have solid foundation, to have solid insight into the market you are ultimately trying to serve. Market is a big word. We were just a small startup, so those specific people, specific companies, specific customers you are trying to cater to, and then how to position that competitively, how to position that in a way that is long-term sustainable, and also in a way that that particular business I was a part of could sustain and build, right? Like, of course, you can have many interesting ideas, but if you have maybe we started with 4 people or something like that, a lot of those ideas are just not feasible. And so the importance of product thinking was definitely the second biggest lesson. And this is where I got supremely lucky with Productboard, because as a part of researching for that company, I got this kind of journalist license to ask other product makers how they are thinking about building their products, right? When I was designing for the road mapping experience within Productboard. And it was like, hey, okay, so how do you prioritize? How do you roadmap? What do you show this for? How do you align people around this roadmap and so on? So kind of the product thinking, product management, even though I'm not a product guy, I decided to root myself in design, and maybe we can talk about what that means. Even though I was considering shifting to product, because I think I have a lot of that kind of type of mind, but I think it's ultimately better to anchor myself in design with a product mind. But this point was meant to be about the importance of a product mind and product thinking. And every time I write a carrier map or carrier letter or job requirements, you can be sure there's like a bullet point on product thinking, even for designers.
So you say that you think of yourself as more of a design guy and less of a product guy. What would be your insider perspective on the current UX design market and what's going on right now?
Yeah. That's super hard to say. I think it's chaotic. I think more eclectic. I think things are shifting very quickly. Mm-hmm. Not everywhere, though. I was at a dinner last week with a couple of well-versed design leaders and design people and seasoned designers. And a couple of people made a really good point that maybe in like insurance, nothing is really moving fast, right? And so also the design roles and design competencies are not shifting as quickly, right? It's a very stable environment, almost maybe to a fault. Like it's not an environment for everybody. And if you want to move fast and have quick impact or big impact, maybe that it takes patience there. But maybe it's not as eclectic. Whereas more on the forefront, if maybe it's a smaller company, maybe the product market fit is not so strong, or maybe just even though it was product market fit is not it's not a milestone. It's just something that keeps evolving. And so maybe AI came in and kind of rocked that foundation, and you need to fight for the stabilization of it again. I think a lot of companies just like scrambling, trying to figure out what that means. Of course, if it hits revenue, that means you maybe cannot spend as much on people. So maybe you lessen hiring, or maybe you lay people off, because that's what we all learned is totally legit after COVID and after what the big tech companies started doing. And so I would say that there's kind of everything goes in the current market, but it doesn't seem like it's apocalyptic yet. It feels like it's. I've read this article maybe 3 weeks ago that I'm blanking on the name, but it was one of the big names in design, and the article mentioned that design was always like the kind of like the third in the row after engineering and product, and this is not the first time we are being tested. What is that seat at the table, as some designers are talking about, like, and it's again the kind of old song of maybe an executive coming in and saying, hey, why do we need so many designers? Like, when AI can do kind of the pencil stuff and the crayon stuff, right? And, we can argue whether it can actually do it, but maybe in 6 months it could actually do it. But then the point is that is not product design, really. But some people think this, and the people who think this are both on the kind of executive leadership side and sadly also sometimes on even the design side, I would say, right? And I was like that. I was like that for the first 5-7 years of my career. I was like that, right? And so, yeah. So, and then if you operate like this, well, then you are not really building a strong foundation for yourself. And so I think this creates a system where a lot of this can, like, what I said, a bit of a chaos goes, because you can't quite prove the importance of your role in some cases. Like I said, it's not all dismal everywhere. In some cases, it's really hard for you to explain to your, not necessarily to your manager, but maybe their manager and the person above, what the heck do you do? And they're thinking, hey, like, I've been seeing all of these amazing designs from Lovable or from Stitch or from Gemini Pro, and they're winning all of these benchmarks, right? And our UX is like, So maybe let's just over rotate and spend more time on kind of product managers, and maybe let's ask product managers to do this kind of design work themselves, and then but they don't know kind of what is the missing piece. And so I think that is the true challenge for designers to and design leaders and design ambassadors to keep educating even at these trying times, because I don't think ultimately the the process or the kind of ways of working, maybe processes it triggers people, but the ways of working have not that fundamentally changed on the high level. Like the tools, everything is different. Obviously, everything is different. But I think a lot of the people are just, in the last maybe, again, 20 years as designers, we didn't do such a great job explaining what the hell we do. And so now we are kind of like reaping the fruits of that, of people, again, not
Right
truly
positioning.
appreciating what we can do for them, what we can do for the customer, what we can do for the user, what we can do for the company. And so that's what I think is what we are seeing. In a little less abstract terms, people are closing roles, people are letting some designers go, but on the other hand, some companies are still hiring, some people are opening new roles. Definitely heavy expectation on UI, AI competent nowadays. So that I would say that's a rapid shift. A year ago, we were like, you should probably play with these tools, and now it's just a given, it's a requirement. So I think that's definitely different, but I would say that's not design has changed as form. It's more like the ways of working in design have changed.
Yeah, so just to follow up with that, you mentioned about AI and we hear about these new tools coming in each and every day, some of which you mentioned, be it Lovable or Replit, Google Stitch, and every other day we keep hearing about these new tools coming in. So what do you think is the impact of so much AI entering the market, and how should we keep up with so many things that are coming up?
That is the $1 million question. So it's a two-parter, right? The simpler answer is on the second part. So how do we keep up? Well, first of all, you can't. You don't keep up. So just give up on keeping up. Just make yourself happy with being aware, but don't try to keep up with everything. I think reading, listening to the internet is a really good idea, and setting aside some time to trying things on your own is a really good idea. For me, what works well is I try to blend a couple of kind of the proven things. So of course you gotta, I would say, of course you gotta spend, I don't know, 30 hours in Lovable in the last 3 months, just to know what that is like, or a comparable tool in the same class for the same use case. But then you realize some people really recommend magic patterns, and that's the Silicon Valley hype. So maybe you go there. Maybe that's fine, right? And then obviously, as you are more and more ambitious and more competent, maybe you say, hey, I want to dabble with Cursor and Claude Code or Codex and so on. And I think that's also a good idea, even though you might not be effectively in the end shipping or producing shippable code for prototyping. It's a really important and interesting set of options. And then once you are in Claude Code, this huge plugin ecosystem opens for you, right? And again, so you cannot keep up. You cannot keep up. Some things are making it simpler. Obviously, Lenny's podcast, Lenny's newsletter, he brings interesting guests. They answer similar questions to what I'm trying to answer right now. And I would say that's a good way to get like a signal of like, this is really interesting. Like, obviously, I cannot test all of the 12 tools that came up in the last week, but I can test this one and give it maybe 2 hours and see whether there's something interesting on it. But ultimately, and I think this is super important to keep in mind, and I think a lot of people are not fully appreciating this and still having this like, let's play, like experiment kind of mindset. You gotta realize whether the tool is actually doing something for you, or it's just fun or interesting. And this is where I think a lot of people, and I could be a little stricter about the word experiment. I think people throw it around and say, hey, let's experiment with this. experiment also has like a scientific meaning, right? And so it has defined criteria, defined scope. And I think that's also a really good idea to kind of put that hat on, maybe this kind of scientist's lab coat and say, okay, magic patterns, awesome. I can plug in my components. I can be on brand every single time. Is it saving me time? And, is it a good part of my workflow? Is it a meaningful thing given how I work? Or because we have a robust design system and there's still 8 engineers who are going to be picking up my work, like, is that a meaningful differentiator? Maybe, maybe not, and so on and so forth. So that would be the kind of the second part. The first part, I think, again, like, realize what your role is, realize where AI can enrich it, and then do that. I think ultimately, right now we are still kind of in this kind of supervised era, like full autonomy. People are playing with like, 5 of my agents built something overnight. Interestingly, they often don't share what they actually built. Interestingly, a lot of those times, these things don't make any money. Or not even a part of the product, the company where that person is working is selling to their customers. Yeah, exactly. So I'd say, product mind again. What is the problem we're trying to solve? How to solve it best? Use whatever tools at your disposal to solve it really, really nicely. If I, again, stepping down from this abstract layer, my go-to is Claude Code. I spend a lot of time in there. It's very versatile. I heard 2 really important points recently. It rewards people who are a little bit more on the technical side. Like I said, I have a technical background. I studied computer science, so a lot of the things that others might potentially struggle with come easy to me, and I needed to learn to appreciate that as a leader. Of like, it's not self-explanatory to everybody. The other was a little bit more. It was harder for me to see, and it's super related to like accessibility and having equity in design and having equity in how you can use tools and use systems that other people are building. And that point is that these tools overall reward people who are who are good with words, essentially. And so that's really interesting. But then again, from designers, we kind of ask them to be good with words, at least to some level. So potentially for designers, it's not such a big mode. But if you ever kind of struggled with writing or didn't really, there was a bit of a friction there. I think now is a good time to maybe start addressing it. So Claude Code is awesome, and then I'll use whatever tool I find complements what I'm trying to do. Sometimes people kind of still are trying to bridge Claude and Figma. Try that. There's actually a different tool called Pencil that makes it a little bit more easy to kind of see the designs visually. It's a Czech thing, by the way, from a very accomplished founder. So I'm kind of trying to see what they can do. But I would not be able to say, hey, this is a must outside of essentially Claude Code, because I think it's a really good combination of very strong large language models from Anthropic, which are winning all sorts of interesting benchmarking, including my favorite bullshit benchmark. How easy are they bullshitted by nonsensical questions and nonsensical assignments? And they're kind of the agentic engine in Claude Code. I find really interesting, getting me good results. It's where I would go.
What are your thoughts about Cursor? Have you explored it?
I spent maybe 30 hours total in Cursor. For me, it's too high level. I don't need the abstraction. Some things like parallel execution, that's really important actually, but I get this from an editor that I'm using. So that's called superset.sh, like shell, and I can run multiple Claude Code instances in that editor. And so for me, Cursor is their own agent. They have a model that I don't really have any thoughts on, the composer. Some people say it's working well, so that's fine. But what I really want to use is Opus 4.6 most of the time. within Claude Code. And so Cursor is not going to give me that, because Cursor is going to give me Opus, but not the agentic loop. They have their own agentic loop, and for me, that's not something I want.
I also heard about this pencil tool that you're mentioning, but I heard that it has some constraints, right? Did you try it?
It's a very nascent tool, so it has a lot of quirks. My main use case is I'm asking Claude Code to put stuff in pencil, so it recreates screens or designs that already exist or will soon exist. So I only use it as a canvas. You can actually work with it within the tool itself solely, and then push it into Claude Code. That's not my workflow. One thing that you realize is how impressive is what Figma has done over the years, because their interaction design is just so polished, and it just follows. Like I'm so used to it all, and it's not even about the keyboard shortcuts. It's about maybe the interaction where you can just like hit like a command key and drag, and it duplicates the layer that you have selected, and things that make you just like more prolific and feel a little bit effortless. And of course they will have it. Of course they will have it maybe in the next release, or maybe in a month or two, right? But right now, a lot of these things are just not there, and it's making me realize how I took them for granted. I would say for the use case of, hey, I want to work visually and then move back to code, it works really, really well, even though, like I said, it's a nascent tool and it's got a lot of quirks.
Do you think the roles will also evolve in the coming years with these AI tools coming in? Like, do you think it will become like the designer to a product manager completely?
Sure. Yeah, I think so. Why I think so? Well, at Ataccama, the company is experimenting with setup like this, where they are blending product managers and product designers. I know even at my product board days, they called everybody a product maker, even then, because they were trying to market the product to engineers, designers, and product managers. So product makers, product builders is something that I'm hearing. And so I think the honest answer is we don't know, people don't know, but for sure a shift is there. And it's less about like, so for me, a good way of thinking about this is not roles, but competencies, right? A role is like a established bucket of competencies that people shape themselves in, and you can hire for because you need someone for this role, and because the role is established, you can there's a high chance that you will hire someone similar, right? And so the competencies, I think, are still there. A lot of them are now changed and are evolving thanks to AI or due to AI, depending how you look at it. I think you can do a lot more now. And if you have a strong sense, strong direction, you can be pretty much self-sufficient. And that's what I've been doing in my own time with my side project. I'm doing everything. And, again, it's a project that's not out there yet. It's not making any money. So, whatever. And at the same time, I can experience, I think I'm already experiencing kind of like what the near future, and in some cases, the present for some companies is in their roles. Like, I have a friend at a tiny startup, 4 people, everybody's doing everything, just like this was the adage for startups before. And I think thanks to AI tools, the blend is even more eclectic, and it's more like, can you do it? Yes, no. Can you do the other thing? Yes, no. Who is in the best position to do it? And oftentimes you are unblocked by the AI tool, because I don't need to wait for you, Shawshank, to draft something for me. Maybe the AI will do a worse job than you, but it will be done, and maybe you take it further the next day when you are free. So I think this is definitely changing, and I would again, depends on the industry. Some still hire designers with that specialty and expect a designer's mind. I think that's changing. I think there was even a lot of fluidity between PMs and designers in the past, maybe more to the product side as opposed to the other way around. And I think this will only get pronounced and emphasized. With engineers proper, I don't know. I think there's still a lot of, I wouldn't, for many categories of software, I would not trust my vibe engineer, whatever, to survive any sort of like scrutiny or audit or attack by a hacker or something.
But like in your daily workflow, like how do you balance creativity with design systems and business impact, like thinking of business as well?
I think it's all about business, honestly, man. Sorry to disappoint. I think creativity in design was always in service of the user, the customer, or at least the problem. But the problem was always experienced by someone, and usually a human or a group of humans. One thing that I think is really good at studying history of design, and even if you just look at the 20th century and maybe even the second half of the 20th century, like we called, there were engineers, or there were no designers, there were engineers, and then they were doing design as a discipline essentially of engineering, and then the digital age changed, and so we give new names to new things or old names to new things, but ultimately it's always about, is there an opportunity I can put my finger on? Is there willingness to pay for solving that problem, tackling that opportunity? So I think that goes first. I think it's a disappointment for a lot of designers, including myself, because I was in there for the beautiful images and neat typography and wonderful rules that just make magazines beautiful. And right now, not here, but in the room where I spend most of my time working, I have a huge bookcase full of wonderful, beautiful things. But even they were marketed successfully and produced successfully because someone wanted them, someone needed them, and so I would say the business actually does go first, even though it was a bitter pill for me to swallow at some point. And then within that constraint, I think your creativity is almost unbound, right? And then maybe there I would draw the line between art and design, where I'd say that's truly unbound. You can do whatever you want to express yourself, to react to something. At least that's, as a, I'm not an artist. I don't have many artist friends, so this is a very kind of naive recollection of how I perceived art and why art gets created. With design, it's always why, how, and within constraints. I'm listening to this podcast and I've been doing this for maybe 12 years. It's way too long. It's called the Drive. It's called the Drive to Work by Mark Rosewater. He's the head designer of Magic: The Gathering, the card game, which seems completely random and super unrelated. But like I said, game design history, kind of like games, and how in terms of like systems, a lot of that can be transferred back to product design. He says restrictions breed creativity, and I completely agree. I wholeheartedly agree. So I don't think there is I'm unintentionally destroying your question, but I think it's you're kind of painting a bit of a false trichotomy or dichotomy, where I don't think these things are opposite. I think they're related, and I think it is sort of a balancing act. But you need to know you kind of need to know your system and your constraints within which you operate. And once you appreciate that, I don't think there's a huge trade-off between like what you can do and cannot do. The trade-off can happen when maybe you really want to invest into that thing while the business doesn't need it, or the customer doesn't need it, and the business is not willing to support it. And you know what? At some point it happens, but you are actually misaligned, and it happened to me in the past. And maybe that's a good signal to maybe take your talents someplace else and try within a different set of constraints.
Right, that makes sense. Like, of course, like my question was always like up for a challenge. Like, maybe it's incorrectly positioned, but like I still got some interesting insights from your answer as well. So, one of the other questions I had is regarding like I heard that you've been taking mentorships as well. So, what do you think in this current market that is in transition? How should a young designer position themselves to enter the market right now?
If I'm completely honest to yourself and myself, I'm not the best person to answer this question. It's because for the last 7 years of my career, I essentially, because of the company wanted that, I focused more on working with senior people. even though I talk with junior designers, emerging designers, I'm doing this event for like portfolio review in a month where that's exactly how I'm kind of trying to maybe get my sense for that side of the market and also help a little bit. I'm not the best person to answer this question. I think as a hiring manager, you are always trying to de-risk the hire, de-risk the internship. And so what would always impress, kind of no matter the level, no matter the experience, and you kind of need to hack it or jump ahead of it or get ahead of it as a, let's say, an emerging talent. You just got to show some work. You just got to show something that you've done. You cannot drag your feet and expect outcomes will come to you. And so for a junior person, maybe it's your, maybe you've had an internship, maybe you're still in school, maybe it's your last year, so you're thinking about how to get hired. It's a really good time to think about like, what is the case study you are going to present, right? And of course, it's not going to be full of impact and moving business metrics, because maybe it's going to be a website for or like a redesign of something. But if you can do that and demonstrate you have a clear mind, good talent, solid taste, ability to execute, I think that's a really good move. And then networking is definitely an important thing. And so don't be, if you can, don't be one of those applicants that just get, I'm not sure if many people actually saw a so-called ATS, applicants tracking system, from the inside. It's what most companies do for exactly the purpose. The name is very descriptive. It can happen that for a role, maybe you get hundreds of applicants, and your name is then a name in a spreadsheet, and there are two buttons: reject or proceed to the next stage. And so, don't be a line in that fucking, in the fucking spreadsheet. Just write to the hiring manager, right? And that maybe they will pull you back in that ATS system, and no matter what the recruiter before them did, maybe you'll get your interview, and that's how I would do it.
From my own perspective, what I felt is that, what if I'm not good enough to reach out to the hiring manager? Like, my design is not the perfect one.
Well, good enough is relative, right? Like, I'm talking here with you to a potential audience with some perceived authority, right? Or I'm trying to project certain authority, but then every day I'm recapping all of the things that I don't know, all of the things that I fucked up again, in the past, all of the things I want to learn, all of the opportunities that I missed and probably are not going to get again, right? So, at some point, and you asked about the imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? Like, I'm not an all-star designer, and I never will be. But then again, I'm not terrible. I'm a hard worker. I have results. I have people around me who say I do good work. People who turn to me for advice, for my competency, for my experience, and so. Of course, you're good enough, right? Are you good enough for that company? Are you good enough for your dream job? Day one, maybe not. Maybe that's the problem, right? I think just keep on working and keep on fighting. Yeah, keep on fighting, and you'll get there. You'll get somewhere. You might not get there exactly, but you might be just here, and that's close enough and great enough.
Right. So then, on that high note, I think we should end this session over here. It was a pleasure talking to you and connecting with you once again. I think you also had some good time as well, right?
Totally. Thank you for having me over. And this is a really good way to get my brain going. So thanks for asking all of your thoughtful questions and to give me the opportunity to have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much, Pavel, and we keep in touch with each other.
Sounds good. Thanks for listening, and have a good one.
You too.